Hey guys, so today we're going to start on Newton's second law of motion. What you are going to need is your notebook, something to write with, a glue stick, a pair of scissors, and then this paper right here, which is what we're going to be cutting out and writing on. So go ahead and open your notebook, and we have our three laws here. We have our first law of motion cut out. What we're going to start with, though, is we're going to go ahead and write Newton's second law under this tab right here. So go ahead and go to it, flip it open. So you guys have actually already seen Newton's second law of motion. You just didn't realize that that's what it was. So Newton's second law of motion is where we get the formula force equals mass times acceleration. So what it actually says is when an object has a mass and it is acted upon by a force, so far we have when an object has a mass and it is acted upon by a force, the object will accelerate in the same direction as the force applied. There we go. So basically what we're looking at is if you have an object with a mass, if you apply a force, then this object is going to accelerate in the same direction that that force was applied. So this is where we get our formula, force equals mass times acceleration. So if you did not get this written down, go ahead and pause the video right now. Okay, so these are our three laws. On the page after that, you have Newton's first law where we've done all of that work. Now what I need you to do is go ahead and turn to the next page. Just the next, let's lay that down flat, open page. And this is where we're going to put Newton's second law. So you have your paper and there's a bold line that goes all the way around this rectangle. That's where we're going to make our first cut. So our cutting. Make sure not to drop any of your scrap paper on the floor. If you do, please pick it up. At the end of the video, you're gonna show me your notes and that you've got it done, and so whenever you get up to do that, you can get all your scrap paper into the recycle bin. Okay, so we have cut out this big rectangle, and we see that there's one dotted line that goes from the top to the bottom, and then there are three little solid lines over here on the right. We're going to go ahead and make some cuts on these three solid lines so that we're going to make 4 flaps on this paper. So it doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom, just make sure you cut from the edge to the dotted line. So here's one. Then here is number 2. And our third cut, number 3. Okay. So you should have a blank white space on the left side and then 4 flaps with writing on the right. Now if you can see that this is a dotted line right here, we're going to make a fold all the way down this dotted line. This may have been easier if we folded first. That's okay. So we're going to fold each one of these over. Okay, so there we go. We're going to end up gluing this down right here. We still have some blank space right here. I think this is going to fit pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and cut the title out. That way you don't have to write it. If you'd rather rewrite it, that's fine. I'm going to use the printed version so that it looks nice. Just trimming all of this extra white space off. And here we go. Okay. So go ahead and turn your large piece over. And we are going to put glue on the back here and go ahead and glue it into your notebook. Then we have this piece of paper right here for our title. We're going to put some glue on the back of it. And you can either glue it here on the white space, you can glue it outside. I'm going to glue it on the outside just in case we end up needing this white space for our notes if you run out of room. Okay, so here's where we're at. Put the lid back on your glue so it doesn't dry out, please. We are actually done with your scissors and glue if you want to go ahead and put those back in your craft bucket at your table. Now we're going to write some notes underneath our formulas. So F equals M times A. We're going to open this one up. Let me zoom in so you can see. Okay, F stands for force. Let's make sure we stay under the flap. M is mass, and A is acceleration. So whenever we read this formula, F equals M times A, that means force equals mass times acceleration. So force equals mass times acceleration. Under here, I also want you to go ahead and redraw your formula triangle. We're going to be using this a lot today. Draw your triangle. Divided into 3. Now remember, because mass and acceleration, you multiply them. When you write it as a math formula, they're next to each other. That's where they have to go in the triangle. So M times A, F goes on top. F over M means division, and F over A means division. Okay, so let's go to the next one. These are going to be 3 practice problems. So the first one reads, a soccer ball was kicked. It had the mass of 0.42 kilograms and accelerated at 25 meters per second squared. What was the force? So we know that we're going to be looking for the force. So we can go ahead and write our formula. F equals M times A. We know if we plug in our numbers, we're looking for force. Our mass, if you go back and look, it had the mass of 0.42 kilograms, 0.42 kg, times our acceleration. It says it accelerated at 25 meters per second squared. So that's times 25 meters per second squared. So then we go through, we do our math. You can actually go ahead and put this in the calculator since you're allowed to do or use calculators on your test. When you put that in, you should end up with, I'm going to give you a second to do it, see what you end up with. Should be 10.5. And remember, we actually measure force in newtons. It was named after Sir Isaac Newton. Example number 2. A force of 20 newtons acts upon a 5 kilogram block. Calculate the acceleration of the object. So it tells us the force is 20 newtons, acts upon a 5 kilogram block. We have to remember that kilogram measures mass. So we're given our force, we're given our mass, and it's asking us to calculate the acceleration of the object. So if you have your formula triangle, F, M, A. We're looking for acceleration, so you cover it up. You're left with F over M, or force divided by mass. So your formula is going to be A equals F divided by m. So if we plug this in, A equals, well, F, our force, was 20, divided by our mass, which was 5 kilograms. So if you put this in your calculator, A equals 20 divided by 5. So we know that our acceleration was 4. We can assume that it's meters per second squared. Last one. An object with a mass of 300 kilograms is observed to accelerate at the rate of 4 meters per second squared. Calculate the total force required. So again, we're looking for force. That's what our original formula gives us, is force equals mass times acceleration. We're looking for force. If we go back, an object with a mass of 300 kilograms. So this m, we're going to trade out for a 300 kg times accelerated at the rate of 4 meters per second squared. So force equals, go ahead and put this in your calculator, and you should get 1,200 newtons of force. So now that you are done with your notes, go ahead and clean up your workspace. Make sure all that extra paper gets put in the recycle bin. Make sure your glue and your scissors end up back in your bucket at the table. And go ahead and bring me your notes. And you're going to show me that you have done this whole page, and then also that you have written Newton's second law of motion.